Good morning. This is Matt Holdinghausen. I'm submitting my Google Plus funding assignment for Crystal City School District, and I am the Crystal City High School principal. Our revenue sources. As you can see, I started off with Crystal City. I compared our numbers to Dunklin R5, which is in Herculaneum, and also to the state, which is to the right. At Crystal City, I knew that we relied a lot on our local funds. The local funds are in red. So in Crystal City, our local funds equal 62.75%, which is about 10% more than the state average, and also, about 15% higher than Dunklin, which was surprising to me. We don't have a whole lot of industry, and we're 4 square miles for our school district, so we rely quite heavily on our community. At Crystal City, we get 31% of state funding, which is, again, lower than the state average, and then 6% of federal funding, which I will explain in my ahas in a little bit. Our neighboring district, Dunklin R5, is a little bit different than even the state average. They are getting 48.76% of local taxes and 45.58% of state taxes for revenue, and then 7.66, a little bit more federal money than us. And the state averages, as you see, 55.45 is local for the state, 35.47 is the average, and then 9.08 a little bit higher. So as you can see, in comparing these, we're getting about 2/3 less of the federal funding than the state average, and again, much higher reliance on our local taxes. Looking at the annual Secretary of the Board report, these were 3 surprising items that I looked at. And when I looked at it the first time, when you look at the superintendent and what they're running here, it's actually interesting because they're basically the chief executive officer of a multi-million-dollar nonprofit because of all of the money that you're budgeting and in charge of. It's an impressive position, and it's something that, with my background in business, I would really like to do at some point. The other surprising part for me was how much we spent on food services for breakfast and lunch. It is basically the majority of our federal money that we receive is for funding for our food services. And just looking at the numbers, it was, you don't think about how much money. I know how much it costs for a teacher or how much it costs for a student, but you don't see how much that's being subsidized. So it was interesting to see those numbers. And then the other part that I didn't know how many funds went into is transportation. The amounts for our small school district were pretty high, and then I would imagine, with our 600 students enrolled in the district, if you were up to 1,200 or 2,000, the amount of money in the buses that it would take to transport your children back and forth, and with the budgets coming out for the state and cuts in those areas is an issue for all those budgets that the superintendents are creating. So it won't impact Crystal City as much because we don't have a whole lot of area, but those school districts that have a lot of area, square miles to cover for transportation, I can imagine that is a budget buster. So keep that in mind. 2 items that were not really surprises. I knew our tax rate was high, and I knew that we did rely locally on taxes. I was surprised to see the percentage of how much our budget is on our local taxes. And I know that we are in a nice community, and overall our community does well. We have a high number of college graduates and professionals in our district, and overall, our citizens pay their taxes, so that's a good thing for us. But it also reinforces how important our community is to our school district and how we need to communicate with our community to make sure they know that they're a part and what their tax dollars are going to. And the other part, special education expenses, I looked at those, and I've been talking with our special education director over the last couple of years about all that goes into that. And I looked at the numbers, not really surprising, but when you look at the numbers for the small district that we have, I thought it would be around there. But still, it does catch your attention when you're looking at those numbers. And something that I need to discuss further with our superintendent is the debt service fund. with the small school district and high amounts of debt service fund, we don't have too much of a debt service issue, but we do have some. And we were talking about the cost of using that debt. So when we talk about doing improvements, we almost want to try to avoid any debt service that we can avoid, so we don't have to worry about paying that interest in the future and don't have to worry about the costs of that in the future for future budgets. So again, Matt Holdinghausen, Crystal City High School, thank you very much.